We will call the meeting to order and have a roll call, please.
Ken Halliday here.
Kenneth Howell here.
Larry Stone here.
Tracy Anderson here.
Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag of the United States of America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Are we good with the regular agenda? Any need for amendments or?
Looks good to me.
All in favor?
I need a motion in a second.
Motion
I'll
to
second.
approve.
Yeah. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So now we're going to minutes from October 17th, 2023. I read through, didn't see any need for change.
Move to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Second that.
We have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now it's time for any declaration of conflicts of interest. I believe we have those. And then we have an opportunity for public comments. Len? Thank you.
Lynn Teach, 253 Pine Street and 155 Main. I feel it might be best for me tonight to clarify my reasons for attending the HPC meetings. I believe in the values of historic towns, also how they contribute to the issues of sustainability. I would like to learn more, as much as possible, about the process. I have lived and had a business here for over 40 years. 22 of those years have been in retail. Throughout those years, I have heard thoughts and concerns from my customers, clients, residents of the town, which have a lot of value as to what the commission is doing, and when appropriate, I would like to share those thoughts with you. Keeping the town an authentic Colorado town is number one concern they have. There are many people who come here to see the history it presents and its beauty. Would it not be great if the highway was not just a scenic byway, but also a historic byway, starting with Minturn, then Red Cliff, Camp Hale, and Leadville? Leadville has already seen the benefit of catering to the historic tourists, those who want to see the authentic Colorado, not the, as they say, Disneyland Colorado, and I quote. We have the opportunity in front of us to be different than the rest of the Eagle County, which is great. It can take a look at what Idaho Springs and Georgetown have done. They're constantly swamped. I want to make it clear I am not here representing P&Z. Any issues you have to deal with that might require comments from the commission need to come before us in a public meeting. Thank you.
Larry, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Lynn, can we ask questions, Madison, of Lynn?
Public comment is not.
Public comment is not typically a back and
Okay.
forth. It is
Yeah.
a public makes a statement, council or commission takes that under advisement, but there isn't really a discussion in that.
Well, I would just like to make a statement then, just that, Lynn, you mentioned that at some point you'd like to share what you've been hearing, and we would very much like to hear that at some point. Thank you.
Perhaps we can set that up towards the end of our agenda this evening, when we're when we're set.
I would think it would be terrific. You know, we haven't gotten much feedback, so I just loved hearing that. So I'd be all for that, Larry, whatever you decide.
Let's address it when we get to item 12. Now we have special presentations. I'm not sure that I don't think we have any special presentations. What we do have next is a business item where we had asked staff to draft an ordinance to consider what Manitou Springs had done to present to council as a potential ordinance for having some sort of a historic variance as an incentive for folks to designate their properties as historic. So Madison has done that. I think that we should jump into looking at that ordinance.
Seven.
Did everyone get a chance to read it?
Yes, I did.
I read it.
Comments?
I was curious where the 2 feet, I mean, maybe you could give us a little background, Madison, on how you guys came up with the first one.
Sure. So when I had a meeting with Manitou Springs after our last HPC meeting, I did ask them about the side setback, and their side setbacks are actually typically 7.5 feet. And for historic structures, they gave an exception to 5 feet. Well, our setbacks are already 5 feet. And so lessening it more than that was a little bit difficult, especially if you lessen 2 feet on either side. Say you had 2 historic properties on either side, that gives 6 feet in between structures, which is what's required by fire code. So I certainly didn't want to go more than 2 feet, given the life safety issues with fire being so prevalent in the state. And so that's where the 2 feet came from. But I'm certainly open to any number that is less than 2 feet. 18 inches, a foot, 6 inches.
No, that's helpful. I just didn't know the context. Thanks.
Also, were there any rear or front setbacks that Manitou Springs had? That's something that.
Not that I saw. Theirs was specific to side setbacks, which is why since I mirrored ours after theirs, I did ours is side setbacks as well. So no, not that I saw.
The reason I brought that up, I'm thinking back on 151 Main Street, where there had been discussion about the potential of moving that structure closer to the sidewalk in order for them to achieve some goal they had for building. When they thought,
I'm not getting into that.
what's that?
So we're not getting into that, but yes, they wanted to move the structure forward.
But there were some discussions around that, and I know that we've said our ultimate goal is to not lose structures, right? That relocating them be useful, or if if a building did need to get moved to preserve it, to make room for something else. Is that something that we would want to be incorporated? Suggestion with council for this ordinance.
That is up to y'all.
Can I ask a related question, but Larry, that I think partially might address what you're asking? Madison, that one provision that Manitou had in there, that we have, that's pretty broad. I don't see it on the screen here, and I'm on my phone, unfortunately, but it was like number 4 or number 5 on that ordinance. and it says as long as it doesn't affect the compromise. I can't remember exactly what the language was, but it seemed to be a catch-all. And would that, can you tell us a little bit about what would potentially fall within that catch-all? And would it be something like Larry's talking about and
Is it
variances and things like that? Or what is it that's contemplated?
the issuance of
That
letters?
that
support?
there be a letter of support for a,
Right, so that's
yes,
waiving,
that's it,
that's
yeah.
waiving building code requirements or amending building code requirements as long as life safety is not affected. Building code requirements have nothing to do with setbacks, those are zoning requirements. So those are two different kind of
Oh,
governing
okay,
bodies
thank you.
on how to build a structure.
So it wouldn't, okay, so that you're talking about building code type stuff versus setbacks. Okay, so it wouldn't address, so we'll go back to Larry's point. Thank you for that clarification.
Where is that on, is that mentioned here on this?
Oh,
Yeah,
what mentioned?
yes, she just read it.
Some building.
I don't know,
It's 1B.
yes. So this would be the only zoning relief that we'd offer is the side setbacks as it's written right now.
As it's written right now, yes.
Have you seen any examples where the front or back setbacks have been?
We certainly currently have many structures in town that violate our current
Oh, I'm
zoning
sorry,
setbacks.
I'm sorry, I meant, I'm sorry, Madison. I meant, when you were doing the survey of, the different, historic preservation provisions.
No, most towns, if they had something like this, it was side setback. Most historic lots tend to be smaller and skinnier. So most people fit things on them lengthways. It's the width that's the issue. So I believe that's where this has come from.
Got it.
I kind of think that there is probably structures within this town that could.
Oh, that are certainly currently in the front and rear setbacks, that they certainly exist.
And as we have it now, I believe if the cost of a project is 50% or more than the value of the structure, then the entire structure has to be brought up to by building code, and that was any requirements for rear front setbacks.
That's theoretically the case, yes, though I don't, it's hard to make somebody move a whole building.
So I just feel like if we're presenting this, it seems like we should consider all setbacks as something that could be considered. Is my thought.
Yeah, I was always also curious about height restriction. Is there opportunity for variance and height restriction?
There's certainly an opportunity for y'all to give a recommendation to council. I think height is a much more contentious issue that might need to be vetted out more.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can see where council and or P and Z will have to, might need to discuss all through that. I just think it's an opportunity that I believe would be best benefited to historic properties. There's nothing, I mean, there are definitely cases where people have been able to add extra stories or, raise the height of their building, and it still stay in historic preservation. So I would like to see if that's a possibility that they would entertain, because, if it is an incentive for some, whether it's commercial business or to add residential on top, which can add, obvious revenue to the town as well. I think I would feel much more comfortable in that variance than for a new structure. Is my take on it. So I don't know if that's something worth exploring. I don't know what other people think about it. But
Any comments?
Yeah, Ken, can you, so I just want to understand, so you think that, perhaps someone might get a historic designation and then want to increase the height, correct? And are you leery of that, or are you thinking that could help? I think that the latter, but could you just clarify that for me?
yeah, I mean, I think that any incentives, it's hard, we're sitting in the seats that we're in, we don't know what other property owners may want, right? Other than what feedback we get, and we certainly get limited amount of that. So for me,
Right.
it's just a matter of looking at any and all incentives and giving preference to historic, or whether it's remodel, redevelopment, or whatever folks are looking to do with potential historic properties. I think part of what may make it difficult to consider, taking on any upgrades is, if you're going to be able to get the increased value out of it by putting that effort in, right? And so by adding space, it's certainly an opportunity to increase value. So that's kind of where my thought is with it.
And I assume you're thinking though, as long as it doesn't undermine the integrity of the historic nature, right? I mean,
Yes.
yeah.
Did I hear from other members regarding setbacks, whether they be side, front, or rear? What your thoughts are on that?
Honestly,
Well-
don't have enough experience to know what we ought to be asking for on this, but to the extent we can do something that presents those as potentials as opposed to, outright that they get the right to additional footage or whatever. Kind of like with that provision down below on construction requirements. I don't know. Did you see anything like that, Madison, where we could, I'm trying to think do we have to decide absolutes, or is there a way to be supportive of variances on setbacks in general or height restrictions in general? Does that make any sense?
It does make sense since we are proposing actual code language changes. I do need to be more specific, rather than taking to council, your recommendation on generalities, because y'all are making recommendations that the code be changed to this.
Madison, would you mind clarifying what the existing height, what the code is for height?
Of course,
presently?
from all zone districts, I believe, except for the 100 block, it is 28 feet. The 100 block is 35 feet.
Okay, so that's roughly 2 stories, roughly.
Two and a
an
half.
angle roof.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That just helps me visualize this. And so I can see this, it wouldn't supersede that. Like, I don't think that we would want to ask, or would we? I wouldn't want to ask for anything that exceeds that. Could you guys let me know what you think on that?
Yeah, I guess that's what I am saying, is that I do believe there's an opportunity to increase that. I'm not saying that necessarily anybody is asking for that. Yeah. I would be in favor, but like I said, I wanted to hear what other people had to say, and I appreciate that, Tracy.
Could I just comment real quick though? I
I would-
like what the idea behind it, Ken. I just think that you know, the code is the code and there's a reason. And, you know, when you allow someone to build more than surrounding people, you really risk, you know, inflaming them because you're hurting, one, their views, and two, I don't want to make an unfair advantage for people. I mean, I was thinking more you might mean, well, if it's, you know, half that, if it's, you know,
Yeah, I guess
one
I would
story, we could go to 2 stories, but I wouldn't want to supersede that, I don't think. But I'd like to hear what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, and I would just follow up to say that I do believe that anything that's over 75 years, I lives in a different set of rules than newer than 75 years. So that's just my perspective on it. That I would want more openness to honor the age and the fact that, I mean, that's what we're sitting on Historic Preservation Board. So that's for me. That's how I align to that. So that's not to question anybody else by any means, but that's just saying, to me, like, my incentive is for historic preservation. Like, that's what I'm focused on. I'm not focused on anybody else's properties other than those that are 75 and over in that regard. I am as a community member, but in this seat, that's what I'm focused on.
Other comments? Ken, you were about to speak?
I was just going to say that I'm less inclined to ask for anything on height. You know, I don't have a whole bunch of experience with this, but it's just my gut feel that the scale's really important down in the 100 block. So I wouldn't monkey with that personally. But that's just, again, I think we're all just expressing our personal opinions. I do think I am somewhat persuaded on the front and back setbacks, that if there was a way to include some language that would be supportive, at least, or open to it. I don't know that we can come up with something like we did on a specific on side setbacks, but I'm more inclined to be supportive of the front and rear in addition to this side setback.
Well, I have to comment that I would be in favor for giving the incentive for height, but I also agree that that would be a challenge, and I feel like I would be a minority thinking. But I do appreciate what Ken is presenting when it comes to giving this sense of incentive. The reason I got on this board, and I told the council when I got here, was I'm very much interested in economic viability of this community. And I had no problem preserving Helen's house, but I did it because I desired to. But there's a lot of financial limitations. And, gentleman who just bought 151 Main Street, the rent is going to be super high on it. It's a very small space. It is now sitting empty, and I don't see anyone jumping in line to get in there. So I think it's important that we give some incentive and some movement to allowing investors to come in and create their dreams or whatever they're wanting to do within limitations that also serves the needs of the community. And our community has made it clear that we need economic viability, and so do investors. So I know it's a cute little building there at 151 Main Street, but I don't see a candy shop going and making the kind of money that it would have to support the cost of that building. So what Ken has suggested of having a height variance because of the historic structure, it has intrigued to me, but I agree with you, Ken. I don't think that's one that would fly. However, the front setback and the rear setback, I think that's something that definitely could be helpful. So that's my opinion.
And I would say I'm in agreement with the front and rear setback addition to that as well. And I think there's another thing to consider as well when we talk about these variants. This isn't allowance. This isn't saying this is what's gonna happen. What it does is provides people an opportunity to do just as they do now, present a case to planning and zoning and then council for why they want to be able to do something, right? And public comment can certainly arise in all of that situation that, you know, council then would be put in a position to make a decision that's in the best interest of town, as they do every time they sit there, right? And so that's where my motivation, whether, and I don't want to hammer so much on height, just with really just making sure that we're thorough in what types of variances, great to bring up the front and back setbacks as well. So that people, it may spur interest in that regard as well. Because by looking at that possibility, someone may say, hey, that's been the resistance for me to do this. And okay, this is something I can get behind, or I might be able to want to do. So that's part of my motivation as well.
What I have heard from comments is that one out of the four members believes we should have a height commentary in here. Two of the members that are opposed to it, it sounds like they just feel like it's an uphill battle. It might not be worth disrupting. If I have that correct, then I would suggest that we move on from the height conversation and focus a little bit more on what is presented. And I do have a question in regard to the side setback, Madison.
Mhm.
Can you explain, if it says side setback relief of 2 feet, not to allow structures to be less than 6 feet apart? So how does that work?
So here's your property line. Side setback 5 feet normal, side setback 5 feet normal, go in 2 feet. Now the side setback is 3 feet. Other structure, if we had two historic structures next to each other, goes in 2 feet. So now they're currently 3 feet from the lot line, 3 feet from the lot line, that is 6 feet. Or if a structure sat on the lot line, the structure next door couldn't take advantage of that 2 feet. There needs to maintain a 6 feet of fire separation. So theoretically, if they were both respecting setbacks originally and wanted to come in 2 feet each, that would still leave 6 feet between each structure, or between structures on either lot. But if for some reason, one structure was already violating the setback, multiple feet, this structure couldn't get any closer than 6 feet to that other structure, so that you're not having structures built on top of each other, messing with foundations for one or the other, and also, that fire separation. So that was the rationale.
Okay, so here, if we look at structures that already, two historic structures sitting side by side are not even 2 feet apart
Then
right now.
they don't have to move, they just can't get any closer. They would have to maintain their position.
So if we were wanting to preserve a historic structure, that the cost of doing so would exceed 50% of the value of that structure, we cannot preserve that structure. Right? Because it would force that building to have to come down or be moved or something.
It's very hard for somebody to make somebody move an entire structure. The structure's been there for a while. It's in the ground. It's got a foundation, theoretically. Who knows? This is my turn. I have not had to apply our nonconformity section to any historically designated structure yet. So
New territory.
it is new territory. I do not know how that would work.
And I think that's where our job as members is to talk this out, right? so that we're hopefully helping. So, thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I mean, when you look at it, the code allows, or really says that 10 feet of separation between houses, right? When you look at 5 feet setback on either one. So that's basically basically what it's saying is that that we would be more in line with what the fire code restriction is, knowing, or the international fire, was it international fire code, right? So then, knowing that also that, as you said, being on the lot line may mean that you don't get the 5 feet. You actually have another foot of encroachment into your property line, and that's just the part of how those property lines meet, right? And so, yeah, I think being in line with what an international fire, code is more than appropriate. It's also, this is being focused on historic properties, so this isn't what we're talking about for the rest of town. That might be a larger discussion.
It's mainly in the 100 block where I see structures that are already very close. And, to Lynn's point of people coming into this authentic town. Like I look at the 151 structure and I believe, is it connected to the building next door?
Thai kitchen?
There's a small portion, which is like a pantry, that is probably 3 feet by 3 feet that connects the two buildings between the Thai kitchen.
Yeah, I kind of
That's the
remember when
entire
that-
part. The rest of it is open in front and the back.
Okay. So if the country club building
Mhm,
is a historic structure and 151 is a historic structure,
mhm.
and any work that goes to get done, would that be a forced movement to go to, hey, we've got to move these structures being 4 feet apart?
I don't believe so.
That would be
I
more
can't say
around
for
if you were
sure.
doing a foundational change. I mean, that's what that would, like, if you were to say, hey, I'm gonna lay a new foundation and I'm gonna wanna, mess with with that encroachment, right? That would be more of where that would come in, but in general, I don't think there's any case of moving a property to be in conformity if it's not evolving the original perimeter of the structure.
Okay. So there's really no incentive then for that anyway, the side setback of 2 feet. My only concern is when I see, I don't know the cabin that came down, but I look around and I see some of the older structures and if work is going to be done on those structures, then how can this be an incentive to help them? Is what we're really looking.
Yeah, that's where the other incentives, like, being able to get a letter of support, that what they're doing is not, affecting the safety of the building. Really, as we're looking at it, the only thing that we're allowing for variance wise is in the setbacks. Right now, it's showing as the side setbacks, and then, we're still in discussion now on the front and the back setbacks. Otherwise, everything else is within more like building code than it is in like property variances.
Any thoughts from you guys on the Zoom?
I really don't have any thoughts to add.
I personally am fine with variances or whatever setbacks are necessary for historic preservation, but not for other, not for other new construction, as I've mentioned, but I'm actually fine with that. The height thing, not so much, but yeah, I'm okay with it.
Do we want to add some language in here for all setbacks, or do we just want it to mirror what, as Madison did with Manitou's on the side? You want to see some language for front and rear setback?
What would that look like, do you think, Madison?
I would likely do another clause or just add on to that same clause. Very similarly, you're allowed to encroach. Since front setbacks and rear setbacks are typically larger, maybe 3 or 4 feet rather than 2 feet. I would not add any language to allow encroachment into the 30-foot river setback, though, as that is the riparian area. So I would most likely exempt out that one particular setback. But since the ordinance is changing, I am certainly, I would want to bring this back to y'all before it goes to council to get y'all's final approval. So it is not like you were giving me an ambiguous direction tonight and I take that and interpret it how I want and that goes to council. I would prefer to bring this ordinance back to y'all.
So.
That makes sense.
So
Yeah, I
can
appreciate that as well, Madison. And I wasn't thinking of the riparian. I think we definitely need to guard our river. So
Absolutely.
good point.
Absolutely.
Thank you for bringing that up.
And there's differences in setbacks for a main street versus an off street, right? Because
Not
of the sidewalk or no?
No, most of our lots go up to the sidewalk, so the sidewalk is not included in any setback discussions. So, or if the sidewalk is on their property, then it's on their property and it's part of their setback. So the sidewalk is not really, in fact, I think most zone districts are front setback is 10 feet all around, I think. And then the rear setback varies between 10 and 20 feet for different zone districts.
So do we have, did that answer your question, Ken?
Yeah, and based on the way Madison answered it, I kind of like that. And I'd love to see that in writing, as she proposed, and so that we could consider it at our next meeting.
Yeah.
I don't think we ought to rush on this. I'm kind of wondering if there's, I feel like we don't have money, and so these are our list of incentives, and it's not much. Maybe that's just the way it is.
And this is certainly not the only time y'all can amend the code, if in the future we do get a budget, or if in the future there are other things that we can do to make life a little bit easier for people with historic structures, this section can certainly be added onto.
Maybe that's important context when we present this to council to say, these are the things that we think on our preliminary review are going to be important, but we'd like to reserve, and we'll come back to you from time to time as we get further into this if there's other things that we see we need to do.
Okay, so, you feel like you have the direction? on that?
I do. Before I ask for a motion for continuance, I do need public comment to be opened.
Yes. Public comment is open.
Anything?
Lynn Teach 155 Main. I just want to express the fact that if you look at 155 and 151, that's a good example of 6 feet between the buildings. You've got about 3 feet on the outside on mine, 6 feet between us. And basically, if that little addition between those two buildings was removed, you'd have your probably very close to your 6 feet, because that's the only section of that pass through that is blocked. Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. And it looks really natural too, where the two buildings that Lynn just mentioned. When you think about historic downtown structures in Colorado anyway, a lot of the buildings are literally touching one another. They're side by side. So, you know, I think that it's important to have this available. All right, any other comments on this particular ordinance for Madison? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I need a motion to continue to, January 16th.
And so moved.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Tracy, I.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, so now we had directed Madison, there was some discussion around what have we accomplished, and here we are at the end of the year, 2023 is over, and so Madison has a staff report for us. Or actually, I'm sorry, I'm jumping. The Historic Preservation Plan update from 2022. So we have done some things. Do the members want to comment on the update?
Yeah, I think the CLG thing is is huge. I think, once some momentum gets going, I think we'll really be able to see the importance of that. So I think it just takes the town to a different level, and I think it helps in a lot of different ways. So I'm excited for that. I also appreciate us taking a reflective look at this, because each year is going to be a little different. So we've may have some potential, as we're hearing about some other properties that may want to go into historic preservation. So I think it's just really good for us to look at that. So thank you for pulling that together for us.
I had a comment, Larry, if I might.
Please.
Is maybe more of a question, Madison, as you went through, I read through all your responses and stuff, and I did have a sense that, we've made some accomplishments here. What do you see that, was there anything that kind of jumped out at you that you think we ought to pay in particular attention to as we start this next year?
Sure. So this kind of goes hand in hand with both our historic preservation plan and the annual report that I included at the end of the packet that I submitted. And that part of our goals and one of our action items, let's see if I can find that action item real quick. Yes, action item number 3 under goal 1. Encourage the participation by both the HPC and staff for webinars and online and in-person classes to further the knowledge base of those implementing the program. And one of the questions within the annual report was, were there any trainings that any of your Historic Preservation Commission members partook within the last annual year to be included? And to my knowledge, at least nobody had told me anything of different trainings that they done. I said no. It's just like, well, we're a new CLG. We're still getting our feet underneath us. But I am hopeful that within this new year, I can start hunting down different things that y'all can sign up for. The webinars that I have participated in within the last few months have typically been over the lunch hour, super quick hour-long webinars that are regardless fairly informative of different things that either History Colorado does, different grants available, maybe not informative from the what is historic preservation side of things. So I'm hoping to track down more educational ones rather than, what's out there monetarily. But that is something that I hope that we as a staff and then y'all as a commission can focus on in 2023 is, taking those materials, learning those materials, so that there will be an update in next year's annual report now that I know what they're asking for, what they're looking for, and also so that we can check off this action item.
Awesome. It's terrific.
Thank you, Madison. Can I make a comment? I think, actually, I think that some of just the speakers we've had, I'm sorry that those don't qualify, because I've learned a lot when, the various people have come and kind of talked to us, but, I will look for some of those opportunities as well. And thank you. And I just want to add too, that I love the plan, and I'm happy that we're really working diligently on creating these incentives, even if they're not as meaty as we would have liked, due to our lack of funds. But I think we're making good progress, and yeah, that's all.
Well, I look forward to continuing the goals and objectives of what we have here.
Yeah, I agree.
There's plenty for us to work on. We've accomplished a lot. And so I look forward to continuing.
One comment, if I might.
Please.
Madison, as you're probably in the control tower seeing more than we do. If you see any kind of programs or something about how communities get the word out, or how they, train their residents, or not train, that's not the right word, but it create the awareness within the community. If you see anything like that, I think that's one of our weak links. Is we're a young organization. We're trying to get the word out, but we really don't exactly know how to do that. We've done some baby steps. We've done some things in newsletters, et cetera. I'm not saying we're not doing what we should be doing, but my question is, what is it that we should be doing that we don't know we should be doing? And so if you see anything out there like that, Madison, I'd be interested in that.
Absolutely.
Any other comments?
I think, just propelling this into, I know you'll be working on a 2023 plan, or we'll have this as our acting plan. Yeah, I think it would be neat to be finishing next year and there be a plaque or two, out on these properties. So I think just as far as like a tangible, physical, visual goal, just something I thought maybe worth throwing into the mix. We are obviously the saloon and the water tower are already in preservation. So if that's a matter of us looking at some templates or whatever we need to do over the course of the next year, I think it's likely already going to happen, but I think just making sure it's a target that we have in
Kenneth, I'm so glad you raised that, Kenneth. I'm really glad you raised that. I don't know if you were finished. I'm sorry if I cut you off there. I just was excited about your comment.
Thank you.
And I was going to say, it triggered something that I thought in one of our prior meetings, somebody was following up to actually see if we could get a template and a cost around that, or am I dreaming, Madison?
I believe Kelly was going to do that.
Oh yeah, it was Kelly. Okay.
I can kind of work with him on that too, just to kind of get some momentum on it. But he's already been looking at it, and I know that's important to him too.
When I was reading I'm going back on something, but just in the spirit of this conversation right now, when I was reading the ordinance, I did think about the plaque. I mean, do you ever see a plaque show up in those ordinances when something is would it be inappropriate to put it in an ordinance that when you become a historic, I guess you don't want to promise to provide a plaque to every site, right? I guess that's the problem.
Right. So I did actually see something like that in Steamboat Springs' ordinance. And I got about halfway through adding it to this ordinance and was just like, I don't know that I can promise that a plaque will be provided.
Yeah, I think I just got halfway through my comment and realized the same thing.
So running on very
Never
similar
mind.
wavelengths here.
Yeah,
but that is certainly something that maybe we don't codify, but it's a policy that can maybe be put in place as long as there are funds available, etc. But maybe it doesn't go in the code, which
Yeah.
would then essentially be law
Yeah.
promising that this can be done.
Yep, yep. Okay. Thank you. But I love the comment, Kenneth. And I agree with you. Thanks that you're going to follow up. That's terrific.
Yeah, I'll get with Kelly and we'll see what either of us can come up with, and we'll wait. I don't know if Madison, if you want to put that on or I guess we'll put that on the agenda items in the future in section 12. So
Yes.
I'd like to add something too, if I may. I'd be in another realm of just like outreach, I guess. I'd be more than happy to, attend. I don't know if the council's still doing it, but I know they had times where they would hang out at a bar and it'd be advertised to just people could come and ask questions, and I'd be happy to kind of join that as, a liaison from this commission. Just maybe just thinking about ways that we can increase our visibility in the town. Maybe we could even, have a short spot at the Minturn concerts. I mean, I'm just brainstorming here, but anything we can do, you know, uh, we've gotten some good publicity in the Vale Daily, but like town talks, and I'm happy to help write those or whatever. Just, just thinking about outreach, and I'd really kind of like to be able to be a part of that when the snow stops flying. I'd say in the spring might be a good time. So just putting that out there.
Yes, Lynn.
Lynn Teach, 253 Pine Street. I think reading through the packet, there was one comment made, and when you're saying spring, talk to Cindy, because there's going to be different things going on in the market where maybe one week the booth will be done on weed control or something like that. Perhaps one week somebody from Historical Society could be there talking to people about Historical Society and maybe put out a little jar for donations. I mean, but would be through Cindy. I'm on a committee for the market, but it should go to her first because she sees the big picture.
That's a great idea. Thank you, Lynn. All right. Are we moving on to staff reports?
As I talked about earlier, the 2023 annual report for CLGs was due November 1st. That covered, I believe, from October of the previous year to September of this year. And they asked for a number of things, minutes from all of our meetings. We included the minutes since we'd been approved as a CLG. We were approved at the end of February. Examples of different public notices, whether that's public notice for an opening on the commission or public notice for an actual nomination. And then, they asked for, the makeup of the commission, demographics, what we had designated historic, how much had been done this year. So just kind of in general, data gathering report that will need to be submitted annually. So that was submitted November 1st and it was due. And within the next week or so, I got an email back from History Colorado saying that our report had been accepted and approved. So I included that for y'all's review, as I'm not sure what the state does with our reports. I don't know if they make them publicly available on their website or if they just kind of keep them as a running kind of tally of what each jurisdiction has done. But that way y'all can see what I sent to the state and the answers given. So much, I assume that I will be doing this exact same report every year. Giving an update, and as I said, the one section that one of the sections that I ended up needing to leave blank because one, we'd only been functioning as a CLG for about 6 months at that point, by the end of that fiscal year. And so hadn't had a ton of time, but was the education standpoint of different things that any commission members had attended. Because unfortunately, while I have attended a few things, they weren't asking about staff, they were asking about commission. And so I hope to be able to fill in that section more robustly next year. But other than that, if y'all had any questions on the answers that I did give within the report, I am certainly available to answer those.
Comments?
Yeah, the only comment I would make, I thought Tracy made a really good point earlier about the speakers we've had. And I don't know if those count, but God, they really should.
I can certainly
I mean,
inquire.
I really, well, at least we should get credit for the fact that you guys put together some amazing folks to come talk to us. I really echo that sentiment, and I think it should count for something. We should get some. It should show up somewhere in the annual report that we actually are finding these. You guys are finding these people, and then we're taking commission time and space to deal with it in a thoughtful way.
It could be that maybe I took that question a little bit too literally. Nobody signed up for a webinar that had a specific title and date and time, and in the future, I will certainly ask Dr. Foley, who the report was submitted to, whether or not those individual speakers who come to meetings count.
Okay. Shall we move to Historic Preservation Commission comments? Any comments?
Does that sound like it?
It is silent.
It is silent.
So,
Okay.
before the meeting started, I'm going to make a comment. I did that. Thank you. Before the meeting started, I had mentioned a change of point of view. I know everyone has heard my opposition to some of the mandate of historic structures. Jane and I discussed Helen's house, and we know that we're going to need to come to the town for a building permit to connect the barn and the little milk shack so people can get to a bathroom without having to go through the little prep kitchen. So we decided to just go ahead and nominate the structure ourselves. I felt like one of the reasons that I wanted to do that is I did not want board members to have to vote knowing my prior opinion. So I decided to just nominate it myself, and just wanted to let you guys know that that's about to happen. That's all. The next item is future.
No, before you leave that, I mean, that's fantastic, Larry. I'm very excited about that, and I think that's going to be good for you guys and for the town. And look forward to wearing my commission hat to doing everything we can to support you in that process.
Well,
I
thank you.
second that, Larry. Thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah.
I think of
It's
all the
terrific.
houses that to have a historic plaque out there in front of it will draw attention as well.
Yep.
The little sign that's at the corner before you cross the bridge, I see a lot of people stopping and looking at the photos.
Pardon me.
So hopefully it maybe it will motivate other people.
I agree. We're going to plaque you.
Thanks. All right, so now we're going to, do you have a comment?
No, you're good. Just for future.
Future agenda items. Would we like to add Lynn for the next meeting to discuss what she has gotten feedback on?
Yes, I would love that
Let's ask Lynn if she will
if
come.
she'd be willing. Yes.
Lynn Teach, 155 Main. Just so you understand, the comments that I have, I, in the past, have kept up until COVID, kept guest books at the entrance of my store. And in there, I asked them to please write what they loved about Minturn. And, they put other things. I have taken some of those apart because some just put their names and addresses. And I did make copies for council and a few other people that have been. I'll just pull that together and make copies for you to look at. A lot of it's alike, but I did not coerce them. Some of them may have read the book and copied something, but I was never there. I was always at the cash register, luckily. So I'll bring copies of that in. And, we've got our surveys that tell us what the people of this town want. That's another one. So that's what I was referring to. And come on, some customers of mine that may not have signed those books, but over the years of why they come to Minturn. And I would love to do that by the next, that's probably a month from now.
January 16th.
Yeah, I'll pull it together for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That would be good to hear.
Yeah, just properly placing the plat conversation with the future agenda items. So once again, I'll have a conversation with Kelly and see if he needs any help in the research. And likely we'll be ready by that January 16th, I'm sure.
Okay, for the packet, if I could get from both of y'all, that information no later than January 10th, that would be appreciated.
Before I hit adjourn,
Okay.
would it be appropriate if I go ahead and do a nomination on that property? Can I do that without? I don't know that I'm ready to pull a building permit yet.
Well, you don't have to have any building permit. It can just sit there.
If I do the nomination,
Mhm.
then when I'm ready to pull a building permit, do I have to go through the signage put up for historic preservation if it's already nominated?
Are you pulling a building permit for the exterior?
To connect.
Right, so that would need a certificate of appropriateness if it's already been designated as historic. So the certificate of appropriateness process takes the place of that 2-week signage. I remember when the saloon got their nomination and designation, they had to come back with the plans of what they were planning to do, give
So
their
that
spiel,
process goes to HPC, then it goes on. So
the planning commission.
So I need to allow for that time.
Mhm. Whereas if you just wanted to go straight to, if your goal was to go straight to DRB right now without nominating your own property, at that point, that's when the 2-week sign gets posted and you wait for anybody to nominate at your property, at which point you might take a detour through HPC anyways, because somebody else might nominate it.
Do all that research.
This is true. Somebody else would have to do the research.
All right. Anything else? We will call this meeting adjourned.
I need a motion in a second, please.
Move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thanks again, Larry. I'll see you guys.
Feel better, Ken.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I can, thank you.
Yep.